Hey there, Larry Mendte coming to you in my first ever video blog from Pensacola Beach, Florida, a place legendary for its white sand. I'll tell you what, take a look. That is probably the whitest sand you will ever see, and it's been combed over and manicured just perfectly. Not a trace of the oil that you've heard so much about in the news. That's not to say it's not out there. I just talked to some people who were swimming, and just offshore they did spot some oil. And right down the beach is Santa Rosa National Park. And when I was over there earlier today, BP crews were out there, and although they wouldn't talk, there was a young man with the National Park Service who came down from Michigan to help oversee the work that BP is doing while they're cleaning up the oil. Some of the National Park Service people are making certain that they don't tramps all over some of the vegetation and kill more wildlife that way. He said they found several tar balls in the beach up there, and he also said that some oil is still coming on shore, although not as much as a few weeks ago. That all might unfortunately change because there is something dark and ominous out in that water. Researchers from Massachusetts came down and studied deep underwater the area near the leak, near where the Deep Horizon exploded, and they found a 21-mile plume of oil. In some spots it was 65 feet deep, and in some spots it was a mile wide. And they say it's moving towards the shoreline at the rate of about 4 miles a day. It will probably produce oil on the shoreline over the next few months, possibly over the next few years. So that bunk that the White House gave us, that the oil, 74% of it is gone, is exactly that, bunk. As a matter of fact, some scientists from the University of Georgia said basically the same thing a few days ago, that they just don't buy that. That is the topic of my commentary tonight, Hicks News at 10. So watch tonight and then check in on this blog over the next few days. I'm going to head west into Georgia and Alabama, where even more oil is coming on shore.